3 million copies in 1 month. A #1 hit that stayed there for 6 weeks. 5 musicians who couldn't be in the same room. Centerfold wasn't just their biggest success. It was the sound of a band tearing itself apart. 22 years of brotherhood ended in a 45-minute conversation. The blues rock purists from Boston who became MTV darlings. The bar band that conquered stadiums. Then walked away from everything. From the outside, perfect. Arena tours, Grammy nominations, cultural phenomenon. From the inside, separate buses, lawyers on speed dial, silence where there used to be music. Everyone saw the hit. Nobody saw the fractures. They achieved everything they'd dreamed about in that basement. Everything except staying together. How does a #1 song destroy the people who created it? This is that story. But before the fall, there was the rise. The rise and fall. Everyone focuses on the fall. But the rise? That's where it really went wrong. Because success didn't change them. It revealed who they always were. 5 guys with different visions, different needs, different definitions of what the band should be. The climb was the easy part. Unity comes naturally when you're struggling. When you're winning, that's when you find out if you actually wanted the same things. They didn't. None of them understood what that success would eventually cost. Boston, 1967. Nobody expected anything from them. Geils and Danny Klein met at Worcester Polytechnic Institute. 2 engineering students who cared more about blues than equations. Peter Wolf was spinning records at WBCN, the coolest DJ in Boston. Magic Dick, Richard Salwitz, was playing harmonica in dive bars, channeling Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters. They connected through the Boston music scene. Different backgrounds, same obsession. The music they heard in their heads, Chicago blues meets Detroit R&B, didn't exist on the radio yet, so they had to create it. In basements and borrowed practice spaces, with secondhand equipment, and absolutely no idea what they were starting. They played for $50 a night, sometimes less. Slept in the van between gigs. Atlantic Records said no. Columbia said no. Every major label in New York passed. Peter Wolf kept his DJ job. Someone needed income. They added Seth Justman on keyboards in 1968. 6 became the classic lineup. The chemistry was instant, undeniable. When one person played a riff, the others knew exactly what came next. What they didn't know then was that every rejection was hardening them, building the hunger that would eventually make them unstoppable, but it would also make them impossible to satisfy. They had something money couldn't buy: chemistry. When Geils laid down a blues riff, Magic Dick's harmonica answered. When Peter Wolf shouted a lyric, Seth Justman's keyboards colored it perfectly. They finished each other's musical sentences. That kind of magic. You can't manufacture it. And they had it. That's what made everything that came after so tragic. Because once you destroy that kind of magic, you can never get it back. Then came 1970. Atlantic Records reversed course, wanted to sign them. The same label that had rejected them 2 years earlier. The dream was becoming real. But here's what nobody tells you about dreams coming true. They come with conditions, expectations, pressure. And pressure reveals cracks you never knew existed. The debut album took months. They lived in the studio. When the Geils band dropped in November 1970, critics noticed. The album charted modestly. Not a smash, but respectable for a debut. But modest success meant the bar was set. Album 2 needed to be bigger. The pressure started before they'd even celebrated. 1971-1973. 3 albums. The morning after. Bloodshot. Ladies Invited. They became road warriors. 200 shows a year, building their reputation one sweaty club at a time. Bloodshot hit number 10 on the Billboard 200 in 1973. Their breakthrough. The single Give It To Me got radio play. Suddenly they weren't just a bar band, they were contenders. But the touring schedule was destroying them. Geils played through fevers. Magic Dick performed with broken ribs. The van became home. The arguments that used to last 10 minutes, now they lasted until soundcheck, and that was only the beginning. Atlantic wanted consistency. Songs like Give It To Me, radio-friendly, 3 minutes, hook-driven. Seth Justman wanted to experiment. Peter Wolf wanted to stay true to the blues. Don't sell out. First real disagreement. Not about a song, about philosophy. Do you create for art or commerce? They'd never had to choose before. By 1975, 5 albums deep, they were successful. Gold records on the wall, making actual money. But the question lingered. What were they building toward? What they didn't realize yet was that this question would define everything that came after, and destroy everything that came before. 1980. Love Stinks. The album went platinum. The title track hit Tharsher 38 on the Hot 100, but it became a cultural touchstone, an anthem. Come back, hit 32. Two top 40 hits from one album. MTV was coming. Their sound, R&B-infused rock with new wave edges, was perfectly positioned. But the real explosion came in 1981. Freeze Frame. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. First week, 500,000 copies. By month 3, triple platinum. Then, Centerfold dropped. Centerfold hit #1 on the Hot 100. Stayed there for 6 weeks. 47 countries. The MTV video was in heavy rotation. You couldn't escape it. They were playing stadiums now. 20,000 people a night. The venues they'd bought tickets to as kids. Rolling in money they'd never imagined. The Freeze Frame Tour. 85 sold-out shows. Grammy nominations. Magazine covers in 15 countries. Billboard in Times Square. From the outside, they'd made it. Actually made it. Peter Wolf called his mother from a hotel. Cried. Seth Justman bought his first house. Everything they'd sacrificed for. The dive bars, the broken van, the rejections. It was worth it. But here's what the fans didn't see. Peter Wolf was uncomfortable. The new wave direction felt wrong to him. This wasn't the band he'd joined. Seth Justman was in control now. Writing the hits, producing, making the calls. The dynamic had shifted. And during interviews when they talked about the journey, they weren't looking at each other anymore. Small things, easy to ignore. Until they weren't. But the system only works as long as nothing changes. And everything was about to change. For 18 months, it worked. The Freeze Frame Tour, the follow-up live album, Showtime, went gold. They had a system now. Professional, efficient. Seth wrote and produced. Peter performed. Geils, Magic Dick, Danny Klein, and Stephen Joe Blad laid down the foundation. Everyone made money. The label was happy. Management was happy. They were the model. Do it like they do it. In interviews, Peter and Seth talked about brotherhood, 20 years together, family. And they believed it, sort of. They'd been doing this since 1967. It wasn't the basement anymore, the raw chemistry. But it didn't have to be. That's what they told themselves. This was the mature version, the sustainable version, the version that could last forever. But here's what was really happening. They weren't creating together anymore. Seth would bring in a finished song. The band would add parts. Professional, efficient, soulless. That chemistry that made them special, they'd professionalized it to death. They were coworkers now, skilled coworkers. But the magic, gone. Replaced by efficiency, by routine. Peter felt it. The songs didn't sound like them anymore. They sounded like Seth Justman featuring the Geils band. Nobody wanted to say it out loud, because saying it made it real. And making it real meant admitting that everything they'd built was built on something that no longer existed. The system only works as long as nothing changes. And change was coming. 1982. Post-Freeze Frame Tour. Time to record album number 13. Seth Justman came in with a vision. More synthesizers. More production. Lean into what made Centerfold work. Peter Wolf wanted to pull back. Return to the blues. To soul. To what made them special in Boston basements. Not a new argument, but this time the stakes were different. This time, they were coming off their biggest success. The label sided with Seth. The producer sided with Seth. The room in the studio. Seth at the board. Peter at the mic. The rest of the band watching. We need to give them what works, Seth said. We need to give them us, Peter replied. This is us now. This is you, not us. Silence. The engineer pretended to check levels. Geils stared at his guitar. 10 years of unspoken tension just became spoken. Maybe the problem, Seth said quietly, is that you don't know what us is anymore. They didn't record that day. Or the next. They tried to move past it. Professionals, remember? They had songs to finish. But now every decision was a test. Every suggestion felt like a threat. Magic Dick tried to mediate. Danny Klein stayed quiet. Stephen Joe Blad just wanted to play drums. But you can't mediate a fundamental disagreement. You can't compromise on identity. The line was crossed. You can't unhear words. You can't unknow someone's true opinion of you. And once that line was crossed, there was no way back. They just didn't know it yet. They thought they could manage it. But you can't contain a fracture. You can only watch it spread. Early 1983, they were bigger than ever. Centerfold was still everywhere. They'd just been nominated for multiple Grammys. The label wanted another tour. 150 dates, every major market. Peter Wolf had just gotten married, wanted time off. Seth Justman wanted to strike while hot. This is when you push. Didn't matter what Peter wanted. The machine had momentum. You don't stop a machine at #1. So they went out. Arenas. Playing Centerfold every night. Playing characters of themselves. Peter stopped going to after parties. Started flying home between shows when he could. The joy was gone. replaced by obligation. Success wasn't bringing them together. It was giving them the resources to avoid each other professionally. The money changed things too. Seth bought a place outside Boston. Peter stayed in the city. Different tax brackets, different lifestyles, different priorities. Seth wanted to invest in a bigger studio, control more of the production. Peter wanted to tour less, make music for the right reasons again. And the more money they made, the less they needed each other. That's the trap of success. Struggle forced unity. You needed each other to survive. Success made unity optional, and optional things rarely survive. Mid-1983, the label wanted to know about the next album. Seth had ideas. Evolution of the freeze frame sound. Peter had different ideas. A return to form. Blues. Soul. They couldn't agree. For the first time in 16 years, they couldn't find common ground. The label sided with Seth. He'd written Centerfold. He'd produced Freeze Frame. Peter felt sidelined. In his own band, the band he'd fronted since 1967, it wasn't about the music anymore. It was about control, about identity, about whose vision would define their legacy. Both had a point. Both were right, and both were losing. By late 1983, the dysfunction was visible. Music journalists noticed. Fans noticed. Peter gave an interview about wanting to explore different sounds. Read, "I'm unhappy." Seth gave an interview about staying true to what makes us successful. Read, "Peter's being difficult." The rest of the band stayed silent, trapped between two people they loved, watching something beautiful die. Fame has a way of making you perform your worst self. The thing they wanted most, recognition, validation, success, was now controlling them, trapping them in a dynamic they hated, with people they resented, creating art that felt like work. They were winning, platinum albums, sold-out tours, but no longer together, and winning alone felt a lot like losing. 1982, their absolute peak. Freeze Frame was everywhere. #1 album. Centerfold, dominating in 47 countries. The music video, a cultural phenomenon. Grammy nominations, the tour, 85 shows. Every single one sold out. Stadiums they'd dreamed about playing. Magazine covers in Rolling Stone, Spin, Billboard. Billboards in Times Square, Los Angeles, London. This was it. The absolute peak. Everything they'd dreamed about in Worcester, in those Boston basements, in the van between dive bar shows. They'd made it to the top of the mountain. This was the moment they had been chasing, and the moment everything began to fall apart. Because here's what nobody tells you about summits. There's nothing up there. No trophy, no satisfaction, just thin air and the realization that the climb was the point. And they'd stopped enjoying the climb years ago. Seth Justman stood at the Grammys, accepted the nomination with grace, thanked the band. Peter Wolf stood next to him, smiled for the cameras. Neither looked at each other. The biggest night of their lives. And they couldn't even fake genuine happiness together. Success had arrived. They just weren't there to receive it together. The Freeze Frame tour should have been a victory lap. 22 years building toward this moment. Instead, separate buses, different hotels. They'd see each other at soundcheck, on stage for 90 minutes, then nothing until the next show. Peter flew home between shows. Seth stayed out, worked on demos, avoided confrontation. This was the dream, exactly as they'd imagined it, except they'd imagined it together, laughing, celebrating, brothers. What they got was isolation at scale, loneliness in front of 50,000 people, the spotlight revealing just how far apart they'd grown. Late 1983. The label wanted album 14. They wanted to capitalize on Freeze Frame. Just give us 10 more songs like Centerfold, the A&R rep said. As if it were that simple. As if you could manufacture magic. They tried. Rented a studio in New York. It didn't help. Seth came in with songs. Finished, produced. Peter barely showed up. When he did, he was distant, going through the motions. Geils saw it coming. Magic Dick saw it coming. They'd been together since the beginning. You don't spend 16 years with people without knowing when the end is near. But knowing it's coming doesn't mean you can stop it. The exact date isn't public record. Sometime in early 1983, during those sessions, Peter Wolf and the rest of the band had a meeting. Just the 6 of them. No managers, no label reps, no producers. What was said in that room only they know. But what happened after is documented. Peter Wolf left the Geils band. Some reports say he quit. Others say he was fired. Both are probably true depending on who you ask. Peter's version, he felt pushed out. The music had changed. Seth's vision had become the only vision. The band's version, creative differences became irreconcilable. Peter wanted to go backward. They wanted to go forward. The truth, probably somewhere in between. It wasn't dramatic. No screaming match, just exhaustion. 22 years of compromise, of trying to be five different people who wanted five different things, of success revealing fundamental incompatibility. Peter said, according to later interviews, "I can't do this anymore. Not angry, not bitter, just done." People ask why they didn't try therapy. They probably did in their own way. People ask why they didn't take a break. They'd taken several. People ask why they couldn't just work it out. Because some things aren't broken. They're fundamentally incompatible. Peter's vision, blues rock, soul, authentic, raw. Seth's vision, evolution, production, commercial success. The label's demands. More hits like Centerfold. Nobody was wrong, but nobody could get what they wanted while staying together. And at some point you have to choose, your sanity or your legacy. Peter chose sanity. The chemistry that made them special required all the elements. Remove one, especially the frontman, and the whole thing collapses. The statement went out. Professional, vetted by lawyers. Creative differences. The most honest lie in music. The music press exploded. Rolling Stone, Spin, Billboard. Everyone had a theory. Everyone took sides. Fans were devastated. Some blamed Peter. Some blamed Seth. Peter gave one interview. "Sometimes things run their course. We had an incredible run. I'm grateful for every moment." Seth gave none. Geils posted a brief statement. "Thank you for 22 years. This is not the ending we wanted, but it's the ending we have." That was it. 22 years. Millions of fans. Tens of millions in revenue. Ended with press releases and publicists. Because that's how professional breakups happen. Quietly, legally, with everyone pretending it was mutual. Peter Wolf tried a solo career immediately. Lights Out dropped in 1984. The single hit the top 20. Album went gold. But fans knew different. Those solo albums didn't have the magic, the interplay, the chemistry. He built a respectable solo career. But Lights Out was his biggest moment. And it paled compared to Centerfold. The band tried to continue without Peter. Brought in a replacement vocalist. You're Getting Even. While I'm Getting Odd came out in 1984. It flopped. Critics panned it. Fans ignored it. Turns out, the Geils band without Peter Wolf wasn't the Geils band. They dissolved officially in 1985. Quietly. No announcement. Just stopped. Seth Justman did production work, session keyboard work. Never achieved solo success like he'd had with the band. Geils largely retired from music. Restored cars. Lived quietly. Died in 2017 at age 71. Magic Dick formed Bluestein with Geils in the 90s. Taught harmonica, session work, respected by musicians, unknown to the mainstream. Danny Klein and Stephen Joe Blad mostly disappeared from public music life. Reunion shows happened sporadically, 1999, 2006, 2009. Some with Peter, some without. Awkward, professional, never the same. The magic doesn't return on command. But the real cost? The relationships. Peter Wolf and Seth Justman haven't spoken in decades. Not a word. Phone numbers blocked. Won't be in the same room. Geils tried to reconcile before he died. Called Peter. Called Seth. Wanted one more show. One more album. Closure. Neither would budge. When Geils died in 2017, the band released a statement. Together. But they didn't attend services together. Couldn't even mourn in the same building. That's how deep the pain goes. 22 years of friendship. Brotherhood. Gone. Replaced by silence and resentment. And the kind of hurt that doesn't heal because it's not one wound. It's 1,000 small cuts accumulated over decades. Think about what was lost. The albums that'll never be made. The tours that'll never happen. Centerfold came in 1981. Imagine what they could have created in the 42 years since. Instead, nothing. Their legacy is frozen at 1983. Everything after? Decay. Then there's the money. Catalog disputes, royalty fights, lawyers billing $800 an hour to argue about songs written in basements for love. Tours canceled because members couldn't agree on terms. The thing that made them all rich became the thing they're now fighting over. They built something beautiful and destroyed it over things that, in the end, don't matter. Here's the paradox. The music remains. Centerfold is still on every classic rock station. Love Stinks is still an anthem. New generations discover them on Spotify. TikTok kids use their songs without knowing the story. The work outlived the workers. The art survived the artists. Millions have these songs as soundtracks to important moments. First kiss. Road trips. Weddings. They'll never know about the studio fights, the separate buses, the lawyers. They just know the music. And maybe that's enough. Maybe the point of art is to transcend the artist. The narrative became simple. Creative differences led to breakup in 1983. But the truth was complicated. Different values, different needs, different visions of success. Success that revealed incompatibility, pressure that broke communication, time that changed people in opposite directions. You can't reduce 22 years to a headline, but headlines are what history remembers. The headline is, they broke up. Not why, not how, just that they did. And everyone moves on, except them. Could they have saved it? Should they have? What if Peter had embraced the new wave direction? What if Seth had pulled back, let the band be more democratic? What if they'd taken 3 years off after Freeze Frame? We'll never know. Neither will they. And that's its own kind of torture. Spending your life wondering what if. Every solo show Peter Wolf plays, he's wondering. Every band Seth Justman produces, he's teaching them to avoid his mistakes. Every interview they decline is them protecting a wound that won't heal. They achieved everything. Platinum albums, #1 hits, stadium tours, cultural impact, and lost what mattered most. The friendship, the chemistry, the magic. Here's what their story teaches. Success doesn't guarantee happiness. Fame doesn't fix relationships. Money doesn't heal wounds. Achievement doesn't fulfill you. And sometimes, getting everything you want reveals that you wanted the wrong things, or wanted them for the wrong reasons, or wanted them with people who wanted different things. The Geils band achieved the dream. #1 album, #1 single, Grammy nominations, MTV stardom, financial security. But the dream had a cost, and they're still paying it. 40 years later, still not speaking, still carrying the pain, still wondering what if. The saddest part? They created something beautiful together that neither could create alone. That chemistry, that magic, that's gone forever. And somewhere in their private moments, they know it. Peter Wolf still performs. Centerfold sounds wrong without the band. Because it is wrong. That song was created by 6 people. It requires 6 people. Seth Justman still writes music, but nothing hits like Freeze Frame did. Magic is rare. When you have it, when you're living in that magic moment, you don't realize how rare it is until it's gone. And then it's too late. They had something millions of people spend their lives searching for, and they destroyed it. Not intentionally, not maliciously, just through being human, through wanting different things, through not knowing how to navigate success without losing what made success possible. The pressure of winning revealed they were built for the climb, not the summit. And summits don't last forever. Have you ever had something amazing fall apart? A partnership, a friendship, a relationship, where success made things worse instead of better. That's what happened here. They spent 16 years building something magical, 3 years at the peak, and 40 years living with what was lost. Maybe by understanding their story, we can avoid making the same mistakes. Or maybe we can't. Maybe this is just the price of ambition, of art, of trying to create something that matters with other imperfect humans. If you were in that studio in 1983, 22 years invested, chemistry that can't be replicated, and you're just exhausted, do you stay? Do you go? What would you have done?